Welcome to the Hustle Factory Podcast Show. And here's your host, John Limdemis, bringing you amazing insights and views of entrepreneurship on today's society.
All right, what's up, everyone? And hello, everyone, and welcome to the episode 3 of the Hustle Factory Podcast Show. And today, I would like to discuss about habits. So, in the previous episode of the Hustle Factory Podcast Show, I was discussing about measuring your own success and others. So, actually, in this episode, I might actually go a little bit more in depth with this episode comparing to the previous episode, because to be honest with you, habits really tied up from the previous episodes, which I was talking about measuring your own success and others. Because the reason why I said that, well, like I said, the reason why I said they tied up together, because in order for you to become a success, you need to form these habits. It can be either positive or negative, it don't matter. But in a general perspective, of course, you want to create those general positive habits of that in order for it to become a success. So anyways, let's go ahead and carry on to the first thing I would like to discuss, which is pretty much so what are habits? How do you define them? How habits are defined, and more than likely, how are they defined? How are habits are defined in today's society? Well, here's the thing. Well, according to the Oxford Dictionary, habit is defined as a behavioral pattern that is acquired by a frequent repetition or a psychological exposure that shows itself on a regular basis. And for this episode, I will be neither talking about the positive or negative habits, because for me, it is better for me if I just stick with the neutral side of the habits. And when I say the neutral side, I just mean that I'm not gonna put much of an effort on the other side rather than on the other side of it. Like, for example, if I was doing actually about positive habits, then I'm gonna talk more about positive, and then the majority of it will be on the negative side. But the bright side is I'll be talking more about these habits later on in the future. And like I said, it all depends also on how many views and plays we can get on this SoundCloud episode on episode 2. So it all depends on you guys. So the more you guys listen to my shows, the more content we're gonna have more on this, and so on. And before we move on to the next one, I just want you to keep in mind and remember that definition that I was telling you earlier about habit. Basically talks about by a frequent repetition or a psychological exposure that show itself in a regular basis. Now, I just want you guys to remember these two important keywords: repetition and psychological. All right. So according to that textbook definition, if a habit is a behavior or pattern that is acquired by frequent repetition, then that actually simply means that we can always acquire these habits, whether it's positive or negative. And what I mean by that is we can always form these habits. And to put it simply, it just means that you can build these habits, especially when you're trying to build your positive habits, and especially you're trying to be a success, and it very much applies to anything, And like I said before, and I'm pretty sure you've heard this plenty of times, a leader is not born, it is made. Leaders are meant to be made, not born. They're not born. There's no such thing as born leaders. They are made. So just like habits are made, not born. There is no such thing as when you're already born in this world and you already have those positive habits. No, that is something that you progress as you grow up through the years. Anyways, next thing I'm gonna be talking about is basically what is the importance of forming this habit. And I'm gonna put, I know I did say a couple of seconds ago about me not talking about positive and negative, but let me go ahead and break it down just a little bit. Like, I'll just break that barrel for a bit, but let me talk about just a little bit of positive, and then after that we'll go back to neutral. Oh yes, there is this question that every person asks me all the time: how come forming positive habits are so important? Like, why? Like, is that really going to contribute to my success and all that? Well, there's a straight answer to that, and this is usually what I tell them: hell yes, of course, they're gonna contribute to your success. I mean, why do you think successful entrepreneurs like Gary Vaynerchuk, Tai Lopez, Grant Cardone, Robert Kiyosaki, Mark Cuban, and then the rest of the leaders out there are successful? They're not successful because of money and all that. There's different factors, but one of the main factors is because of their habits. They form these positive habits in order for them to become a successful entrepreneur, leader, politicians. It could be anyone. So here is actually my answer to this question, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys, but there are tons of reasons why it is very crucial for you to form this positive habit. And this one actually applies to everything on what you do in your life, whether you're a full-time teacher, a lawyer, a doctor, and the list can go on forever. It can go infinity. Like, it's that crazy. It can apply to anything. But the major point is this: there are a shitload of reasons why having positive habits is such an important thing. And I promise you, the list can go on forever. But the important thing here is that you know the most important reason why forming these positive habits are really important to you. So here's the thing, and here's the way how I see it in the general perspective when it comes to forming your positive habits. The majority of people that you know are actually struggling to form this positive habit, and trust me, they are struggling. It could be your friend, it could be your parents, it could be anyone, and they may not be telling you this because they don't want you worried about that or struggling about that. And you guys might ask me, how do you know? Why? Oh, trust me, I know, because I've been there in that situation before. So trust me, there are reasons behind their behavioral patterns, just like what I mentioned on the definition of habits. But let's be for real here for a second, guys. The reason why I believe they're having a hard time forming these positive habits, it's very simple. Like I said, it's just a matter of their lifestyle. It affects on their lifestyle, whatever they're doing, and whatever the lifestyle pattern they're doing, that's gonna affect everything on what they do in their lifestyle, But here's actually my answer. My answer is this: I will go right ahead and tell you the most important reason why forming positive habits is just fucking important. Yes, I emphasize on that word, fucking important. Now, if you're offended about this, then I do apologize, but you know what? This is what entrepreneurship is all about. I don't have time for games. I emphasize on the word fucking important. Habits are important. Why? Why, you ask me? Check this out. Habits are fucking important is because I want you guys pay attention to this phrase that I'm about to say, and I want you guys to stick this in your head, or to be more specific, to your ignorant heads. And I apologize that again, but I'm doing this for your own good so that you guys will learn to change your mindset sooner or later. All right, here we go. Habits are important because habits are the basis of your success, or perhaps it could lead to your downfall too. Now, I know exactly what you're gonna tell me now. You guys will be thinking, whoa. What do you mean it's a basis of your success and your downfall too? Oh, that's a good question, and I'm gonna explain that in a few when I finish this part. So yes, that is my number one reason why it is important to have positive habits to yourself. So before we move on to the next one, my question to you guys is this: why is it so important to form such positive habits to your life, or to be more specific, to your lifestyle? Like, why? What are your thoughts about it? What is your answer? And I would like to know more your thoughts on the comments below on the SoundCloud, if you're listening to your SoundCloud, or perhaps on the YouTube channel. But the YouTube channel for this podcast will not be launched for the next couple of weeks, perhaps months, because, like I said, I'm still developing a marketing plan for this podcast show and so on. And as soon as I get that, hey, I would love to engage with you guys and so on. So before we end this part, I told you guys why I said it's fucking important, and why I said habits are the basis of your success or maybe your downfall. I'm gonna tell you exactly why. Because habits is the term habits, it can be either a positive or a negative term. So in other words, for me, it's neutral. So whatever you're doing in your life, that's going to affect your success. So for example, I'll give you a really good example. Okay, for example, let's just put it in a different general perspective, right? All right. So when you were a kid, I'm pretty sure you've done this before so many times when you were a little kid, when you're growing up, always biting your nails for no reason. And what happened? And then your parents and then your mom keeps telling you stop biting your fingers or else you're gonna ruin your teeth, which they are partially right, but they're not 100% right, because actually, yes, actually they're right about that, because because if you keep biting your nails and with your teeth and all that, it actually ruins your teeth. But that's not the point. The point is, the more you do it and the more you're not listening to your mom about it, that becomes a habit. So would you classify that as a positive habit? I don't think so, buddy. That's a negative habit, well, at least in a health perspective. So that's just one way. And now, when I'm talking about the downfall, I'll give you an example about the part of why forming habits can also lead to your downfall. For example, if you're trying to be an entrepreneur and you're still kind of stuck with that employee mindset, then how in the hell you're going to be an entrepreneur if you have this employee mindset where you're still worrying about what other people think about you, and you're still worrying about how to make money and all that? So just do me a favor, and before I tell you this, now the reason why I said that, check this out. Just check this. On the negative side is this. If you're trying to be an entrepreneur, like I said, and you still have this employee mindset, and you keep thinking like that, then you have no right to call yourself an entrepreneur. And that's going to lead to your downfall. That's what I meant by that. And here's a piece of advice, guys. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're trying to get to this entrepreneurship level in this game, here's my number one advice, okay? If you're going to be an entrepreneur, do me one favor. Stop thinking like an employee, because if you keep thinking like an employee, then don't you even dare put on your Facebook page or on your Twitter account saying I'm a serial entrepreneur. No, you cannot be an entrepreneur if you're thinking like an employee. There's a reason why it's called entrepreneurship. We're not employees. We're the boss of our lives. That's the whole point. So actually, that pretty much almost wraps up my entire episode. And here's the thing. And before I end this episode, I want to go ahead and tell you guys a few more things before we end this. So couple of minutes ago, I asked you guys, what do you think are some of the reasons why having positive habits is very important to your lives? And as I have mentioned mine earlier, now it is your turn to tell me why are they important, and I would like to see your thoughts on the comments below, and I'll be gladly to answer some of them, guys. Answer some of them with you, and pretty much before we end this, if you can just give me a couple of seconds, actually, before we end this episode, I want to go ahead and give a huge shout out to different active SoundCloud subscribers to my SoundCloud account, and it is awesome of them to keep tuning to my SoundCloud tracks and so on, and I want to give them an awesome shout out about them. And let me just open my SoundCloud app on my phone so that I can properly check their username and so on. Okay, let's go ahead and resume back to this episode. I do apologize about that. I guess my phone is really acting up for no crazy. But anyways, as I was saying earlier about my SoundCloud, for my SoundCloud podcast show on the Hustle Factory podcast show via SoundCloud, I want to go ahead and give a huge shout out to some of the few followers that have been following for the past couple of weeks ever since on my launch on the first episode, and they've been really active listening to my podcast every single time I release a new episode. I want to go ahead and give a few shout out to different people. First of all, I would like to go ahead and give a shout out to a good friend of mine back in Avon Park, Florida. I used to attend with him in South Florida State College, and his name is Kenny Bibb. And thanks, man. And I really appreciate his support and all that. And another person I would like to give a shout out, his name is Anthony Hernandez. He's also a really good friend of mine too, back at the college as well. And another person that I met while I was prospecting online on Twitter, her name is Shalia Gates. Thank you very much for listening to my podcast show every new episode and subscribing and tuning in on my episodes. And then I would like to go ahead and give a shout out to two more subscribers, and they're actually another fellow podcast shows as well. The first one is called the first one's gonna be Zen Business Podcast. I did listen to their content and I love it. And also, I would like to go ahead and give another huge shout out to this one person. And the name of his channel is Hack the Entrepreneur. This host is awesome. I love it. I love his content. and I can't believe I got a follow from him a couple of weeks ago. Ever since I launched my podcast, I listen to his show every week, every time he releases a new podcast episode and so on. But anyways, yes, that's pretty much the end of my shout out. And before we can fully end this episode, like I said, I want to talk to you guys more about something that I do in my side hustle, which is I got a question for you guys. If I can show you a way how to make money from the comfort of your home in just 3 easy steps, are you interested about it? Because if you are, I will go ahead and tell you more information about that and so on. And like I said, that's pretty much it. And you know what? Arden, well, that's pretty much the wrap of the episode, guys. And like I said before, I really appreciate for all the support of you guys been showing a lot to my podcast show a lot lately. Ever since the launch of my podcast show on the episode 0 on the pilot, wow, we almost have a serious shitload of engagement rates. Especially there's almost 35 plays on it, especially on my second episode, and I'm still loving creating content on my podcast show. So just go ahead and give me a huge support on my SoundCloud, and also give me also a follow back on my Twitter account and also on my Facebook page. They are listed on my SoundCloud profile. You're gonna find them. Just follow me, and I'll see you guys on the next episode then. Cheers.